Moira Johnston Block, and I'm standing on the Napa River and have been part of something that is changing the city of Napa. Everybody knows Napa Valley, but they don't often know that there's the city of Napa here on your way up to see the vineyards. And it has been transformed by something that's happened to its river over the last 12 years. And I was part of that, as many hundreds of people were. But to be part of seeing a river come to life and a city around it, for people after decades of letting a river being the dumping ground, now use it as the place where the whole community gathers by the thousands or individually with a sandwich and a fishing pole on the banks of the river. And that was the flood project of 1998. That's when it was passed. And by that time I was the president of Friends of the Napa River, which is, as it sounds, the non-profit citizen group that just came together because they knew we had a sick river that needed help, and we also had a very sick downtown that had been bypassed by the glamorous wineries up valley, by the malls that were somewhere else, by the railway dying here. It was a bypass city, and also it flooded almost every year. We not only saw that the river itself was a resource and a friend of ours, it's what opened the Napa Valley. People came in and out by boat, they moved their goods by boat. But for too long, the tanneries and other industrial buildings had really largely destroyed the usefulness of the river to people. And the flooding was all part and parcel of the development by man along the banks of the river, and up valley as well, the vineyards were part of it. So Friends of the Napa River was something started in my living room 1993, when a gang got together of people who already knew they were, for some crazy reason, passionate about saving and bringing life back to a river, a moribund, dead, sick river. And there were many people then who already saw it as the gem that I think we all prayed it could be. But now that we have got through a flood and river restoration project, it happens to be the landmark in the nation for bringing not only a local participation in it, but to also bring the environmental values, to restore a river as well as protect it from floods. And we became that demarcation line between an era when for decades and generations the Corps of Engineers had been free to largely kill the rivers they tried to save from flooding. And it all came down in 1993 when the Mississippi floods simply proved that it could never again be business as usual. 7 states flooded, hundreds and hundreds of levees broke, and it was suddenly shockingly clear that what the Corps of Engineers had done very well for many decades had killed now the great Mississippi. And out of that came a new national recognition on the part of the administration in Washington then, President Clinton's administration, to make a new policy, which was, never again do we kill a river. If we are going to protect from flood, we find a new way of doing it, which will largely bring the natural working of the river back into play. Now, what do you do when you live in Napa? There are already 60,000 people living here, many of them within a block of the river, or you can't move them. You can't move an entire city. Perhaps you could move a tiny village, but we had to find a way of accommodating a great many people, urban people, and restore the river at the same time. So we, here in Napa Valley, pulled together a county-wide entity called the Community Coalition, and for several years we met regularly and passionately and with a kind of collaborative effort that I don't think any of us thought was possible in this valley, which was full of the usual human conflicts and competitions in terms of social and political values. We did come together and we did create a project that both restored the river to health, bringing fishing back, bringing people back to the river, as well as preventing the floods that have slowed our economy down to a halt almost every year at flood time for as long as man has lived in the Napa Valley. But it's been done in a sensitive way, which right downtown Napa, where you'll see the beginnings of what will be a lush, marsh. You already see all the wild birds, the ducks, the geese, the herons, the egrets. And as it builds up, it will do for that part of this project what is already being done downriver, and that is restoring the river to its natural floodplain. You have to simply look at Katrina to see the results of the old way of building and pretending that you're protecting from floods. That's gone. You'll be sitting having your glass of wine on the promenade at a marvelous sidewalk cafe in downtown Napa, looking out at the birds migrating in and out and the breeze blowing on the marsh grasses. Everybody who had a little boat would get out and take people out on it to introduce them to the river. They began to see that there was a world on the river that none of us had known was there during the generations, I would say 2 or 3, when it was unusable, abandoned, derelict, and toxic and degraded to a point that no kid I ever heard of was permitted to swim in the Napa River. You can now swim in the Napa River, but it will get healthier and healthier as the years go by. What we started telling people in 1998 when we were campaigning for this flood project to be adopted by the county is, turn towards your river. Turn around and look at the river. Make it your front yard. It's been the backyard for too long. And I just hope that anybody who learns anything about this story will come and keep a little of the story in mind as they see a world that you might imagine can happen in any city, by any river, who, like the community of Napa, that recognize they have a gem here that's being mistreated and that it deserves to be treated well. And then to see the bounty that gem gives you when you do treat it well. All you can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. So thank you.